Hello and welcome back to this YouTube channel. So today we have to discuss the fourth lecture related to Indian economy and its current affairs from last 1.5 year. As you know, we are taking these classes from last 1.5 month. So it is now turn of economy to discuss its current affairs. Without wasting any time, we'll jump to the topics which we have to discuss today. As here we can see, if we have to discuss our first topic is state's capital expenditure. So before going to the topic, we should know basic about what capital expenditure is. If you don't know the basics, which I assume that you are the serious aspirants of the UPSC, or if you are preparing for any exam, it is very basic concept that it is the investment in assets that the state makes or the center makes in asset development, for example, hospitals, schools, other for land, etc. There are many ways the state can develop its assets. So, with this regard, what is the news? Why it was in the news? As we can see it here, the Department of Expenditure, which is under Ministry of Finance, they has approved capital investment proposals of rupees 56,415 crores in 16 states in the current financial year, which is not this interim budget, but it was for 2023-24. Approval has been given under the scheme entitled Special Assistance to States for Capital Investment. So, under this scheme, Special Assistance to States for Capital Investment Center has approved 56,415 crore to 16 states. Moving forward, about the states assistance to special assistance to states for capital investment 2020-24. It was first instituted by the Ministry of Finance in 2021 in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. During pandemic times in 2020-21, it was first time introduced. Its objective is in view of a higher multiplier effect of capital expenditure and in order to provide a boost to capital spending by states. So, when you develop schools or you develop any hospital or anything, if you develop any asset that has the trickle down effect, that will give way to the various businesses, and that would help in boosting the economy. So in view of that multiplier effect of capital expenditure, and in order to provide a boost to capital spending by the states, this was brought in. About assistance under the scheme, special assistance is being provided to the state governments in the form of a 50-year interest-free loan. So this is the 50-year interest-free loan. Parts, the scheme has 8 parts, in part 1 being the largest with the allocation of rupees 1 lakh crore. The amount under the Part 1 has been allocated among states in proportion to their share of central taxes and duties as per the award of the 15th Finance Commission. Other parts of the scheme are either linked to reform or for sector-specific projects. Moving forward, let us see what are the other parts of the scheme. Here we can see that Part 2 incentives for scrapping old vehicles. Then we have part 3 urban planning reforms. We have part 4 financing reforms in urban local bodies. Then for part 5 housing for police personnel within the police station areas. Then we have part 6, which is construction of unity malls to promote national integration. Then we have part 7 children and adolescents, libraries and digital infrastructure. Then we have part 7 incentives for implementing timely release of CSS funds by state governments to vendors and beneficiaries. So if we would analyze these things, that we will find this all these things which I already defined at capital expenditure, they come into that, you know, into that umbrella. where the capital is expand, by the by expanding the capital, you have that what we call trickle down effect, or we can say it gives way for various businesses and helps in boosting the economy. Moving forward, we have trends in capital expenditure capex by states. As we could see it here, higher subsidies expenditure. The expenditure by states on subsidies rose at a faster pace, even as their capital spending slowed down in financial year 23. Their capex growth was flat in financial year 23 compared with 29% growth in financial 22. We could see it here that the expenditure on subsidies has rose faster in the capital spending, and the capital spend expenditure on subsidies, they rose the faster, and this spendings on capital, it had slowed down in the financial year 23. And also we could see the capex growth was flat as compared to in financial year 22, it grew by 29%. About capital outlay GDP ratio, the state's capital outlay GDP ratio is expected to improve from 2.3% in 21-22 to 2.9% in 22-23. About GDP debt to GDP ratio, the state's debt to GDP ratio was the highest in Punjab, followed by Rajasthan and Haryana. Then about capex target, according to a study by the Bank of Baroda, 25 states have cumulatively achieved 76% of their capex target in financial year 23. What is the significance of the capex by states? It has multiplier effect. Capital spendings can include high multiplier benefits, crowd in private investment, and ease critical supply constraints. Combined capex spendings in more than that of the center, and thus they play a significant role. In financial year 22, states spent 10.5 trillion on capex compared to center's 8.4 trillion. So from here we could see that the significance of capex by state, it has multiplier effect. We could see that states had spent more on capex, which is 10.5 trillion, as compared to center, which is 8.4 trillion. And one of the significance of capex by states is the future growth. They contribute to future economic growth through the creation of employment and capacity development. It also and we could see also inclusive growth, a sustained improvement in the quality of public expenditure with a focus on infrastructure, research and development, health, education, and other social services can play a conducive role in promoting inclusive and sustainable economic growth, and it has positive impact on other states too. The impact of capex in one state can have positive externalities on the other on that of other states. What is the encouragement to states for capex? The center is offering states a 50-year interest-free loan for capex under the scheme Special Assistance to States. So 50-year interest-free loan is provided under this scheme, which is Special Assistance to States for capital investment. The center has also been releasing tranches of tax devolution early to help states front-load capex rather than wait till the end of the fiscal year. And also the central government has regulated states' borrowings under Article 293 of the Constitution from financial year 23. Thus, also the center tightened borrowing norms for the states by including off-budget liabilities as part of the state's annual net borrowing ceilings. Moving forward, now our next topic of today's discussion is Union Cooperative Banks. Why it is in news, what is its significance, let's discuss about it. The Reserve Bank of India has notified these vital measures to strengthen urban cooperative banks. What are these? How it notified? What are these notifications? To discuss about it. What are the key measures announced? New branches, urban banks can now open new branches up to 10%, maximum 5 branches of the number of branches in the previous financial year without prior approval. That is automatic prior approval of RBI in their approved area of operation. The objective is to rationalize the process of branch opening and to enable the urban banks to tap growth opportunities in the sector, and also FSWM criteria to avail the facility. UCBs have to get the policy approved by their board and comply with the financially sound and well managed norms. So about this financially sound and well-managed norms, we would discuss in another slide. Then RPI terms selected UCBs as financially sound and well-managed, subject to fulfillment of prescribed criteria. About these criteria, we would discuss the branch expansion under the prior approval route as per the existing framework will also continue. Also, one-time settlement cooperative banks through board approved policies may provide process for technical write-offs as well as settlements with borrowers. This has brought cooperative banks at par with other commercial banks now. PSL target RBI has launched to extend the timeline for UCBs to achieve priority sector lending targets by 2 years up to March 31, 2026, and coordination with RBI. RBI has notified a nodal officer in RBI to meet the long pending demand of the cooperative sector for closer coordination and focused interactions. About UCBs, though not formally defined, they are not, it refers to primary cooperative banks located in urban and semi-urban areas. They are the primary cooperative banks located in urban and semi-urban areas. There are about 1514 UCBs in the country. About its regulation in 2022, government made changes to the banking regulations Act 1949 and brought cooperative banks under the direct supervision of the RBI. The amended law has given RBI the power to supersede the board of directors of cooperative banks after consultation with the concerned state governments. Earlier, it could issue such directions only to multi-state cooperative banks. And to strengthen the regulatory framework and financial soundness of UCBs, a four-tier structure categorization was introduced. About the minimum net worth, Tier 1 UCBs operating in a single district should have minimum net worth of 2 crore. For all other UCBs in Tier 1, 2, 3, the minimum net worth should be 5 crore. Capital to risk weighted assets ratio, which is CRAR, capital to risk weighted asset ratios. Their Tier 1 UCBs have to maintain a minimum CRAR of 9% of risk weighted ratios on an ongoing basis. Tier 2 to 4 UCBs have to maintain a minimum capital to risk weighted asset ratios of 12% of risk weighted assets on an ongoing basis, and also priority sector lending targets 75% of their advances have to comprise PSL, including loans to MSMEs, export credit, housing, education, and agriculture, or among others. About the criteria for FSWM status, CRAR shall be at least 1% point above the minimum CRAR applicable to an UCB. Net NPA of not more than 3%. Net profit for at least 3 out of the preceding 4 years, subject to it not having incurred or not less loss in the immediate preceding year. No default in the maintenance of CRR SLR during the preceding financial year. Sound internal control system with at least 2 professional directors on the board, then core banking solutions fully implemented. No monetary penalty imposed on account of violation of RBI guidelines during the last 2 financial years. What are the categorization of UCBs? Here we could see tier 1 all the unit UCBs and salary earners UCBs irrespective of deposit size, and all other UCBs having deposits up to 100 crore. For tier 2 UCBs with deposits more than 100 crore and up to 10,000 up to 1000 crore. For tier 3 more than 1000 crore and up to 10,000 crore, and for tier 4 it should be more than 10,000 crore. Now, our third important topic of today's discussion is critical minerals. Recently, the Ministry of Mines released the first ever report of the country on critical minerals for India. About it, Ministry of Mines has constituted a committee for the identification of critical and strategic minerals. The list comprises of 30 critical minerals, including 7 rare earth elements and 6 platinum group elements, each designated as critical based on their limited availability in India's geological reserves. Rare earth elements include 15 lanthanides, atomic number 57, which is lanthanum 271 in the periodic table, plus scandium, atomic number 21, and yttrium 39. Rare earth elements are classified as light rare earth elements and heavy rare earth elements. The criticality of minerals is judged mainly by two parameters. The list will serve as a guiding framework for policy formulation, strategic planning, and investment decisions in the mining sector. About the real criticality of rare earth minerals, it is how it is defined. It is about how economically important they are and how risky the supply is, how freely they are available, and how easily they can be extracted. It is about its the criticality of minerals, about economic importance, distribution, disruption potential, substitutionality, substitutability index. Then we have GVA multiplier score and cross cutting index. Then in the supply risk, we have governance weighted mineral construction, end of life recycling rates, import reliance and self sufficiency, and substitutability index. What are critical minerals? Here we could see that they are elements that are the building blocks of essential modern day technologies and are at risk of supply chain disruption. For example, antimony, beryllium, bismuth, cobalt, copper, etc. For India, major import sources of cobalt are China, US, Japan. For lithium, they are Chile, Russia, China. For nickel, they are Sweden and China. These minerals are now used everywhere for making mobile phones, computers, to batteries, electric vehicles, and green technologies like solar panels and wind turbines. Based on their individual needs and strategic consideration, different countries create their own lists. What is the significance of critical minerals for India? It has significance in economic growth, in self-sufficiency, in critical energy, promoting climate action, defense, and security. In economic growth, we have minerals such as lithium, graphite, cobalt, titanium, which are essential for the advancement of high-tech electronic, telecommunication, and transport. For self-sufficiency in critical minerals, it ensures self-reliance and addresses the vulnerability in its supply chain. Promoting climate action, some critical minerals are important for climate-friendly technologies like electric vehicles, solar panels, and wind turbines. In defense, critical minerals such as lithium, nickel, and silicon are vital to manufacturing technologies and materials used in the aerospace and defense sector. And in security, critical minerals are necessary for India to achieve its geo-economic goals, energy security, renewable energy goals, mineral security, and commitment to electric vehicles by 2030. What are the core objectives of India's critical mineral identification process? We have supporting economic growth, competitiveness, and job creation, driving research, innovation, and exploration, enhancing global security and partnership with allies. Then we have raw material security for state-of-the-art defense. Then we have promoting climate action and environmental protection. These are the core objectives of critical minerals identification process. The initiatives taken with respect to critical minerals, we have India-Australia Critical Minerals Investment Partnership. It will build new supply chains underpinned by critical mineral processed in Australia to help India's plan to lower emissions from its electric network and become a global manufacturing hub, including for electric vehicles. Then another initiative is Mineral Security Partnership. India has joined MSP, which is a US-led collaboration of 14 countries that aim to catalyze public-private investment in critical mineral supply chains globally. Then we have Mines and Minerals Development and Regulation Amendment Bill 2021. It ensures transparency in the action process of mines and enhances domestic and foreign investment in mining sector. Then we have supply chain resilience initiative. India, Japan, and Australia unveiled SCRI to enhance the resilience of supply chains in Indo-Pacific region and reliance on China. Now our another topic is about semiconductor industry in India. It is very much connected to the earlier topic about critical minerals, as we know that the creation of semiconductors is not that easy. We need high quality materials for it. So let's discuss about it. The government has decided to invite new applications for setting up semiconductor fabs and display fabs in India under the modified Semicon India program. This is in the about modified Semicon India program. The Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology has launched the Semicon India program for the development of a sustainable semiconductor and display ecosystem in 2021. Its objective is it aims to provide attractive incentive support to companies, consortia that are engaged in silicon semiconductor fabs, display fabs, compound semiconductors, semiconductor designs, and etc. About tenure support under the scheme will be provided for 6 years. Nodal agency Semiconductor within Digital India Mission. India Corporation METI is the designated nodal agency for implementing the program. India semiconductor market, its market size reports project India semiconductor market to value about 64 billion by 2026, showing three times the growth from 2019. According to the India Electronics and Semiconductor Association, semiconductor consumption in India is growing at a rate of 15.1%. Chip manufacturing India has become the hub for semiconductor design with nearly 2,000 chips being designed per year. R&D in the industry research and development in this industry, which includes electronic products and embedded systems, generated about US 2.5 billion in revenue. Four schemes of modified Semicon India program are modified. We have modified scheme for setting up of semiconductor fabs in India. Its objective is to attract a large investment for setting up semiconductor wafer fabrication facilities to strengthen electronics manufacturing ecosystem. Then we have modified scheme for setting up of display fabs in India. Objective is to attract large investments for setting up display fabrication facilities to strengthen electronics manufacturing ecosystem. Then we have modified scheme for setting up of compound semiconductors, silicon photonics sensors fabs, discrete semiconductors fabs, and semiconductor ATMP OSAT facilities in India. Its objective is to attract investment for setting up different semiconductor fabrication facilities. Then we have design linked incentive scheme. This objective is the nurturing 100 domestic companies of semiconductor design and achieving significant indigenization in semiconductor and electronic products. About global semiconductor scenario and India's role, major producer presently Taiwan is the world leader in manufacturing microchips with producing over 60% of world semiconductors, over 90% of the most advanced ones. We have US-China conflict. Presently, US and China are engaged in trade and technology conflict. The USA passed the Chips and Science Act, providing subsidies for manufacturing chips in the country, formed the Chip Core Alliance, and imposed additional restrictions on the Chinese semiconductor industry. In a similar manner, China put curbs on the exports of germanium and gallium, two niche metals used in the manufacturing of semiconductors. About India's role, India has positioned itself as player in the critical semiconductor technology field, providing an opportunity for companies to diversify their bases for China. In 2022, India signed India-US Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technologies deal. India launched its India Semiconductor Mission in 2021 and a production-linked incentive PLI scheme for the semiconductor industry. Also, India can be a major beneficiary of Taiwan's new southbound policy, focusing on shifting its trade and investment for China to Southwest Asia and South Asia. Now we have mission on advanced and high impact research. The Ministry of Power and the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy have jointly launched the mission on advanced and high impact research to leverage emerging technologies in the power sector. So we should know that this Mahir, it is the initiative of which ministry? It is the Ministry of Power and the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. They have jointly launched this mission. About Mahir, key objectives identify emerging technologies, areas of future relevance for the energy sector, create a vibrant and innovative ecosystem, and provide a common platform for energy sector stakeholders for various tasks, support pilot projects of indigenous technologies, and facilitate their commercialization, also leverage foreign alliances and partnerships to accelerate R&D, make our nation among the leading countries in the power sector. Funding Ministry of Power, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, and the central public sector enterprises under them, and also central budgetary resources. They are the funding agencies. Approach: the mission will follow the technology life cycle approach of idea to uh, to product. Then due for duration is 5 years from 2023-24 to 27-28. Structure of the mission: the technical scoping committee chaired by Central Electricity Authority. Role: identify and recommend potential technologies development, monitoring for of approved projects. The Apex Committee chaired by Union Ministry for Power and New and Renewable Energy. Role: look into international collaboration, approve and monitor the research proposals. About coverage, the proposals for outcome-linked funding will be invited from companies, organizations across the globe. Selection of the proposal to be done through quality cost-based selection basis. Patent: the IPR of the technology developed would be shared by the Government of India and the research agency. Other initiatives recently launched in power sector, we have financial initiatives to states for reforms in the power sector. About this, the Ministry of Finance has allowed states additional borrowing ranging from 0.25% to 0.5% of the gross domestic product annually in line of reforms in the power sector. The initiative was announced in Budget 21-22 for a 4-year period from 21-22 to 24-25. The additional financial window is dependent on implementation of specific reforms, as in the infograph we could see in the power sector by the states. The mandatory reforms for fulfilling the eligibility by the states, we have progressive assumptions of responsibility for losses of public sector discoms by the state government, and we have transparency in the reporting of financial affairs of power sector. Then we have timely spending of financial and energy accounts and timely audits. Then we have compliance with legal and regulatory requirements. This was the one of the initiative of recent launched power sector. Second one is in market coupling. The Union Ministry of Power has this directed the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission to initiate the process of market coupling of power exchanges in order to have uniform prices across multiple exchanges. Market coupling refers to the uniform of a single power trading entity owned by the government. Under it, buy and sell bids from all power exchanges in the country will be aggregated and matched to discover a uniform power price or market clearing price. At present, MCPs are different in three power exchanges that India has: India Energy Exchange Limited, Power Exchange India Limited, and Hindustan Power Exchange Limited. In India, Energy Exchange Limited currently enjoys a monopoly status with almost 90% share in the electric market. Then in market coupling, the market coupling will pave the way for one nation, one grid, one frequency, one price framework by implementing the market-based economic dispatch mechanism. MBED mechanism envisages this market-based economic dispatch mechanism envisages centralized scheduling for dispatching the entire yearly consumption of electricity both at the interstate and intrastate levels of around 1400 billion units. The implementation of electricity derivatives in the market. Then next is guidelines for resource advocacy planning framework. The guidelines issued by the Union Ministry of Power in consultation with the Central Electricity Authority have been framed under the Rule 16 of Electricity Amendment Rules 2022. The guidelines aim to establish a resource advocacy framework for power procurement by distribution licenses, ensuring a reliable operation of the power system across all time frames. Discoms have statutory obligations to ensure procurement of sufficient capacity to meet demand in their area. Guidelines are a major reform to provide consumer 24/7 reliable power supply at optimized electricity tariffs. Key highlights of the guidelines are provide a time-bound and scientific approach to assess the electricity demand for the future and to take advanced action to procure it. The new generation capacities, energy storage, and other flexible resources need to reliably meet future demands. Growth at optimal cost will be assessed well in advance. The capacity which the discoms tie up shall be a judicious mix of long, medium, and short-term contracts to ensure security of supply to their consumers at least cost. The share of long-term contracts is suggested to be in the range of 75 to 80%. The medium-term contracts should be in range of 10 to 20%, while the rest of the power demand can be met through short-term contracts. And also over-reliance on the electricity market is to be avoided. In Electricity Rights of Consumer Amendment Rules 2022, Central Government amended Electricity Rights of Consumers Rules 2020, which were notified by the government to provide reliable services and quality electricity to consumers. Rules seek to ensure that new electricity connections, refunds, and other services are given in time-bound manner. Willful disregard to consumer rights result in levying of penalties on service providers and payment of compensation to consumers. Ministry of Power has now introduced Electricity Rights and Consumers Amendment Rules 2023 to bring following changes. For the changes are introduction of time of day tariff rather than being charged for electricity at same rate at all times of the day. Price for electricity will vary according to the time of the day. This tariff rates will vary according to the time of the day. Power tariff to be 20% less solar hours during solar hour duration of 8 hours in a day as specified by the State Electricity Regulation Commission. 10% to 20% higher duration peak hours. It will enable consumers to reduce electricity bills and will help power system to use resources more efficiently. Then amendment made in smart metering provisions. Post installation of a smart meter, no penal charges will be imposed on a consumer based on maximum demand recorded by the smart meter for the period before installation date. Now about National Electricity Plan. Recently, Central Electricity Authority has notified the National Electricity Plan for the period of 22 to 32 2022 to 32. As per Electricity Act 2003, Central Electricity Authority is required to prepare a national electricity plan in accordance with the National Electricity Policy and notify such plan once in 5 years. About National Electricity Plan, it includes the review of last 5 years, which is 2017 to 22, a detailed plan for next 5 years, which is 22 to 27, and prospective plan for then 5 years, which is 27 to 32. First NEP was notified in 2007. Transforming the power sector in India, we have from power deficit to power surplus by addition of over 175 gigawatt of generation capacity in the past 9 years. Then in 2.86 crore houses connected with electricity under Saubhagya. Then we have procured price of LED bulbs decreased by almost 90% between 2014 and 2019 under Ujjwala. Our country is the fourth globally in renewable energy installed capacity with 43% of its installed capacity from renewables, 100% village electrification under DD GY, DDGJY, and also distribution loss of discoms reduces from 21.5% to 16.5% under RDSS. Key highlights of this national electricity plan: we have rising energy demand. India has witnessed electricity demand increasing at CAGR of around 4.1% during the last decade, and it is projected that the electricity demand is likely to grow at CAGR of 7.18% for next 5 years. About installed capacity: likely installed capacity for the year 2026 to 27 will be around 610 gigawatt, with around 57.4% non-fossil based capacity, around 40% as of March 2022. About carbon emissions: average CO2 emission rate from coal-based stations has been on a declining trend, indicating improvement in efficiency of power generation from coal-based power plants. About in contribution of renewable energy sources, installed capacity of renewable energy sources is expected to contribute around 35% in the total energy mix by 26-27 and around 44% by 31-32. Energy efficiency and conservation: India has achieved a reduction in emission intensity of GDP by 24% over the period 2005 to 2016, and now committed to reduce emission intensity by 45% in 2030 against the levels of year 2005. Power generation resources: conventional sources, new and renewable energy sources. What are the resources here? We are talking about the resources of power generation. We have conventional sources, then new from hydroelectricity, new and renewable energy sources, storage sources, pumped storage system, battery energy storage system, green hydrogen, and others. Energy storage technologies like flywheel energy storage system, compressed air storage system, hydrogen, and others. About India, all India installed capacity as on 31/3/2022, we could see that renewable energy is 39%, from lignite we could see it is 2%, from nuclear it is 2%, from diesel it is almost 0%, and from gas it is 6%, and from coal itself it is 51%. So we are highly dependent on the coal. In renewable energy, our capacity is from solar it is 34%, from wind it is 26%, from biomass it is 7%, from small hydro it is 3%, and large hydro it is 30%. Now let's discuss about the production linked incentives with schemes. It is a news as we could see that the government has decided not to launch production-linked incentives schemes for new sectors, and will assess the need for course correction for some sectors. About production-linked incentive schemes, it was first introduced in March 2020. It is a special incentive scheme for producers to promote manufacturing in multiple sectors. The incentives are linked to the performance of the organization that the government provides incentives on incremental scale sales. PLI scheme is built on the foundation of multiple sectors with an incentive outlay of rupees 1.97 lakh crore, about US 26 billion, to strengthen their production capabilities and help create global champions. Major objectives of the PLI scheme are transfer India into a manufacturing hub by creating global champions, then increase investment in manufacturing and innovation, then achieve self-reliance with globally competitive domestic manufacturing. About sectors under PLI, we have, let's start from medical devices, auto and auto components, mobile electronic components. We have pharma drugs, food products, textile, electronics and IT hardware, solar photovoltaic modules. We have specialty steel. Then we have white goods. We have pharma, API and KSM. We have telecom and networking. We have ACC battery. We have drones. We have drones components. These are under the PLI scheme. Achievements of PLA scheme as per Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, a significant increase of 76% in FDI in the manufacturing sector in financial year 21-22. Exported boosted by rupees 2.56 lakh crore. Employment generation of around 3 lakh 25,000, which is interesting. And actual investment of rupees 62,500 crore has been realized till March 2023, and also import substitution of 60% has been achieved in the telecom sector. Now, fertilizer sector in India. Recently, Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs has approved a unique package of innovation schemes for farmers with a total outlay of rupees 3.7 lakh crore. 3.70 lakh crore. Key highlights of approved scheme are PM program for restoration, awareness generation, nourishment, and amelioration of Mother Earth. PM Pranam announced in Budget 2023-24 to incentivize states' duties to promote alternate fertilizers and balance the use of chemical fertilizers. So this PM Pranam, it may be important for your prelims exam. Rupees 1452 crore has been approved for market development assistance for promoting organic fertilizers from Govardhan galvanizing organic bioagro resources than plants. Govardhan, it was about Govardhan, it was launched in 2018 under Swachh Bharat Mission Grameen to positively impact village cleanliness and generate wealth and energy from cattle and organic waste. Introduction of sulfur-coated urea gold for the first time to address the sulfur deficiency of soil and soil input costs for the farmers. Urea gold is more economically and efficient than the currently used neem-coated urea. Urea subsidy scheme central sector scheme has been expanded for another 3 years till March 2025 to maximize indigenous production of urea to reach self-sufficiency levels by 25-26. Initiatives taken for efficient use of fertilizers. We have One Nation One Fertilizer scheme. It was launched by Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers under fertilizer subsidy scheme named Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Janurvarak Pariyojana (PMBJP) to ensure timely supply of fertilizers. Who launched One Nation One Fertilizer scheme? It is the Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers. So please remember that. Then we have nano urea liquid plants set up to boost productivity and help increase their economy. Then we have fertilizer flying squads. FF, it was constituted by Department of Fertilizers to stop diversion and black marketing. Then we have nutrient-based subsidy scheme. Under this, a fixed rate of subsidy in rupees per kg basis announced on nutrients named nitrogen, phosphate, potash, and sulfur by the government on annual basis. It is applicable to 22 fertilizer other than urea. For much MRP will be decided taking into account the international and domestic prices of P&K fertilizers, exchange rate, and inventory level in the country. Then we have Soil Health Card scheme provides crop-wise recommendations of nutrients and fertilizers to guide for the individual farmers. About fertilizer industry in India, fertilizers are materials used to provide plants with nutrients which are deficient in soil. It is a chemical product which is either mined or manufactured. It is one of the 8 core industries as we know, in the 8 core industries. Urea accounts for over 2 by 3rd of the overall fertilizer consumption. The requirement of potash is met through imports. Fertilizers are classified as primary, secondary, and micronutrients. Primary fertilizers are further classified on the type of nutrient that they supply to soil, such as nitrogenous, which is urea, phosphatic, which is diammonium phosphate (DAP), and potash, which is the muriate of potash fertilizers. Then secondary fertilizers include calcium, magnesium, sulfur, while the micronutrients include iron, zinc, boron, chloride, and others. Now we have Investor Services Fund and Investor Protection Fund, Securities and Exchange Board of India came out with the comprehensive guidelines for Investor Protection Fund and Investor Service Fund maintained by stock exchange and depositories. Earlier, Supreme Court had announced an expert committee to examine India's investor protection regulatory framework. The court also suggested measures to strengthen Indian investor awareness given the risks and vulnerabilities of the system, such as fraud with investors, high-risk investments, and market manipulations. In the context, SEBI has announced regulatory reforms for the establishment of IFP and ISF. About Investor Protection Fund (IFP), the objective of establishing an IPF is to protect the interests of participants like stockbrokers and investors of the exchange. Establishment: all stock exchanges and depositories shall establish an IPF. Administration: the IPF of the stock exchange and depository shall be administered through separate trusts created for the purpose. The IPF trust of the stock exchange and the depository shall consist of 5 trustees, 3 public interest directors, 1 representative from SEBI, recognized investor association, and chief regulatory officer or compliance officer. The maximum tenure of a trustee, excluding chief regulatory officer or compliance officer, shall be 5 years or as specified by SEBI. Segregated funds: the stock exchange and depository shall ensure that the funds in the IPF are well segregated and that their IPF is immune from any liabilities of the stock exchange and depository respectively. Review: the stock exchange and depository shall conduct half-yearly review to ascertain the adequacy of the IPF corpus. About the contribution and utilization of IPF in stock exchange: 1% is listing fee received, 100% of interest earned on 1% security deposit kept by the issuer companies at the time of offering of securities for subscription to the public, penalty collected from trading members and from listed companies for non-compliance with the SEBI regulations, at least 70% of the interest or income received out of any investment made from IPF. About depositories: 5% of their profit from depository operations, all fines and penalties from depository participants and other members, and interest or income received out of any investment made from the IPF. In utilization of IPF for stock exchanges to meet the legitimate investment claims of the clients of the defaulting trading managers, to pay interim relief to investors in depositories, for utilization of IPF, promotion of investor education and investor awareness programs aimed at enhancing securities market literacy and promoting retail participation in securities market to meet the legitimate claims of the beneficial owners. Then we have investor services fund. I, about investor services fund, it aims at providing different kind of service to the investing publics, such as investor education and awareness programs, dissemination of companies information, etc. Funding: the stock exchange shall set aside at least 20% of the listing fees received from for ISF, which is Investor Services Fund, for providing services to be investing public. Then we have supervision of ISF will rest with the regulatory oversight committee. The regulatory oversight committee is one of the 7 committees for market infrastructure institutions specified by stock exchange and clearing corporation regulations 2018. In utilization of ISF of the stock exchange: promotion of investor education and investor awareness programs, at least 50% of the corpus should be spent at Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. Cost of training of arbitrators. Then transfer of unutilized IPF and ISF. If a stock exchange or a depository is wound up or derecognized or exits, then the balance in the IPF and or ISF lying unutilized with the stock exchange and the depository shall be transferred to Investor Protection and Education Fund of SEBI. About Investor Protection and Education Fund, IPEF, it has been established by SEBI in 2007 and is regulated under the SEBI regulations 2009. It is utilized for the protection of investors and the promotion of investor education and awareness. It is funded through contributions made by SEBI, grants and donations by central government or state government, security deposits and amounts in IPF, ISF of the recognized stock exchange. Now we have middle class Indian economy. Experts have opined that to realize the country's economic ambition, a large, expanding, and increasingly prosperous, genuine middle class is needed. About middle class in India, who are middle class is simply put, it is the class that occupies a socio-economic position between the working and upper classes. How many people lie in this bracket? 31% of India's population is middle class, estimated to grow to 61% by 2047. People reach research on India's consumer economy and India's citizen environment report. According to this price, uh, people research on India's consumer economy and India's citizen environment report, our 30% of India's population is middle class, and which is set to grow to 61%. The middle class holds about a quarter of the country's wealth. What is the significance of 1991 for the middle class? Size of the middle class approximately less than 1% of the population in the 90s. It was less than 1%. Economic growth past 1991 reforms expanded the size of this middle class substantially. The current middle class, which is characterized by consumer driven sentiment, can be said to have taken shape in this era. Why middle class is important? Because of high consumption, Indian middle class contributes about 70% to total consumer spending. It accounts for expanding demand for consumer durables, housing, shopping malls, and other infrastructure. Tax contribution: middle class accounts for 79% of the total taxpayer base. A strong tax base enhances a country's capacity to finance social services such as health and education, critical infrastructure, and others. We have savings and human capital. About half of the income, expenditure and savings is with this section. It is major contributor to savings and human capital, as savings rates and the willingness to invest in human capital are higher amongst middle class households. Then virtuous cycle: once the size of the middle class passes a threshold size, a virtuous cycle is initiated. A bigger middle class spends more, leading to higher business profits, savings and investment, higher growth, and even larger middle class. Now our one of the important article of today's discussion is railway safety in India. As we could see it here, that recently the train accidents in Balasore district of Odisha brought to the fore issue of the railway safety in the about issues in railway safety in India. We have finance related limited expenditure on the safety. In March 2023, the parliamentary committee pointed out that not once had the annual funding to Rashtriya Rail Sanraksha Kosh has been spent fully. Then we have deterioration in operation ratio. Operation ratio represents the ratio of working expenses to traffic earnings. Then for India Railways, operation ratio was 107.4% in 2021-22. This implies that in 2021-22 railways spent rupees 107 to earn rupees 100 from traffic operations. This limits spending on capacity upgradation and safety. Then we have infrastructure related derailments. According to CAG, which is Comptroller and Auditor General of India, reported titled "Derailment in India's Railway" released in December 2022. 69% of railway accidents over a 4-year period, which is financial year 18 to 21, were because of derailments. CAG has red flagged issues like track defects, engineering and maintenance issues, and operating errors as some of the primary causes of derailments. Lack of modernization, track renewal. The vast majority of rail passengers who use the railways to commute daily use general coaches, where infrastructure is yet to be significantly touched by the modernization efforts between 17 and 20. Nearly 289 derailments were linked to track renewals. Then we have Congress congestion of tracks. Capacity utilization on about 10,000 kilometers of railway trunk routes exceeded 125%. Track electrical and signaling infrastructure maintenance and fault diagnosis have suffered because of this severe congestion. In comparison, China's total route length is 1,55,000 km, exceeding India's 68,100 km by more than twofold. Then we have organizational issues not following mandated safety norms as per CAG report. Fire extinguishers had not been provided in 62% couches in violation of existing norms. Also, track management system, a web-based application for online monitoring of track maintenance activities, was not operational. Delay in inquiry. As per the CAG report, in 63% cases, the inquiry reports were not submitted to the accepting authority within the prescribed timeline. In 49% of the cases, there was a delay in accepting the report. Then we have top-down approach. There are mechanisms for periodic field inspections by authorities at various levels to ensure compliance with laid down procedures and standards of workmanship. However, currently the onus of detecting deviations from the norms lies on the higher authorities. This reduces effective monitoring. Then we have human resources related vacancies. According to Ministry of Railway, there are 3.12 lakh non-gazetted posts are vacant all in India. Money in the safety category. The situation remains unchanged since the Hokar committee report brought out a decade ago, which flagged this issue. We have unskilled and untrained staff. CAG has identified high contribution of failure of railway staff as a prominent cause of accidents. As many as 40 out of 55 accidents in 2019-20 fall in this category. There is a skill deficit of the contractual workforce as well as poor follow-up training of staff. Then we have overworked pilots. There have been instances of loco pilots being deployed over and above their prescribed working hours, resulting in a threat to the safety of train operations. The storage of manpower had resulted in loco pilots being on duty beyond the stipulated duty hours. About Indian Railways, Indian Railway is the world's fourth largest railway network after the US, China, and Russia, and the entire track covering a route length of 67,368 km. Indian Railways is the world's second largest network operated under a single management. About railway safety ecosystem in India, operational level, fire extinguishers, track management system, Kavach, HOTS 3X for track safety, track recording car, bridge management system, and electronic interlocking and ultrasonic flood detection. In administrative level, we have commissions of railway safety CRS, railway depreciation reserve fund DRF, Rashtriya Rail Sanraksha Coast, and Railway Protection Force. But Commission of Railway Safety, Ministry of Civil Aviation, the rationale of keeping it under administrative control of Ministry of Civil Aviation is to keep the CRS insulated from the influence of a railway establishment and prevent conflicts of interest. Genesis earlier it was a railway inspectorate. It was redesignated as a Commission of Railway Safety in 1961. Mandate deals with matters related to safety of rail travel and operations, has statutory functions inspectorial, investigatory, and advisory under Railways Act 1989, investigates serious train accidents. Commissions of Railway Safety. Now, in road safety, this is the last topic of today's discussion. Here, National Highway Authority of India has issued guidelines for rectification of accident-prone spots on the national highways by implementing the short-term measures. Key highlights of the guidelines: NHAI projects directors Project directors can undertake a rectification of accident-prone spots to the tune of up to rupees 10 lakh per spot. Such accident-prone spots are identified and recommended by the respective state police chief or by the district road safety committee. Short-term measures consisting more than rupees 10 lakh and up to rupees 25 lakh have been delegated to the concerned regional office. Shorter measures include installation of pedestrian facilities like zebra crossing with advanced warning signs, crash barrier and railing, solar lights, blinkers, etc. What are the initiatives taken to enhance road safety? We have National Road Safety Policy in 2010 outlines the policy initiatives to be framed by the government at all levels. Then we have Motor Vehicles Amendment Act 2019 provides for grant of licenses and permits related to motor vehicles, standards for motor vehicles and penalties for violation. Then we have safety standards for automobiles have been improved in respect of airbags, anti-braking system, tires, crash test, whole vehicle safety conformity to production, etc. Then we have road safety has been made an integral part of road design at planning storage. Then we have IRAD integrated road accident database to capture relevant details about the accident prone areas throughout India. Then we have Brasilia Declaration on Road Safety Disaster to 2015 and to reduce the deaths due to road accidents to half by 2020. Then we have National Highway Accident Relief Services scheme for a grant of award to the Good Samaritan Surakshit Safar initiative, among others. So this was about today's discussion. I hope you liked it. It was very much boring for me too, but as my promise to deliver this information, I don't know whether my way of delivering is very much understandable to you guys, but trust me, once I would start from the July our initiative to 2025 prelims UPSC, I would take up these subjects and you would be different. You would see the different level teaching in there. And thank you very much for staying with me. Please subscribe this channel. Thank you once again.